Good morning. Welcome. We're going to start. Are you ready? Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the press conference for the jury of the 72nd Berlin International Film Festival. I'm going to proceed to introducing the jurors who are going to watch 18 films and decide on the Golden Bear and other awards, which will be announced next Wednesday, so on the 16th. So starting by the left end of the table, she has learned the craft of film production in Berlin before setting up her company in Zimbabwe, where she became the first black woman to direct a feature film. Her literary work, which includes This Mournable Body, has earned her recognition and awards such as last year's Peace Award from the German book trade from Zimbabwe, Tsitsi Dangaremba. From France and Tunisia, an inspired and inspiring producer who brought to life films by Brian De Palma, David Cronenberg, Philippe Garrel, Kleber Mendonça Filho, Paul Verhoeven, and of course he's a Golden Bear winner for 2019 Synonyms by Nadav Lapid, Saïd Ben Saïd. She has shined both in Hollywood and art house cinema, in her Danish native language or others. She was recently an amnesiac woman trying to put together the puzzle of her life in the series Close to Me, and of course she's the queen of the Amazons, the Wonder Lady, Connie Nielsen. Ever since the sensational success of The Sixth Sense in 1999, people have been eagerly expecting every one of his new films. Through various ventures, he has maintained signature qualities such as, but not only, his capacity to draw spectacular performances from his actors, and in particular, a rare talent to direct children. His characters strive to understand and to grow, and indeed he always incites us to remain open to differences and to listen to Mother Nature. He takes on small parts in his own films, but in this week's mystery, he has much more than a supporting role. He is the president of the jury, M. Night Shyamalan. How could we live without him before his breakthrough success in the Locarno Festival in 2015 with Happy Hour? Last year, he treated us not only with one, but two gems, The Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, which won the Grand Jury Prize here in Berlin, and Cannes' Best Screenplay winner, Drive My Car, which has earned 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Film and Best Director, Ryusuke Hamaguchi. From Germany, she knows all the sections of Berlinale. She won the Perspektive Deutsches Kino Award with 2 mothers. She was in competition in 2016 with 24 Weeks, which won the Silver Lola for Best Film. And her last film, Co-Pilot, premiered last year at Panorama, Anne Zora Berachet. And from Brazil and Algeria, he's a winner of the Cannes Un Certain Regard main prize with Invisible Life. He's also very beloved at Berlinale, with Panorama having showed 2 of his documentaries, and he was also in competition in 2014 with Praia do Futuro, Futuro Beach, Karima Inuz. I'll just start with a quick question to the president of the jury, Mr. Shyamalan. You have been very vocal and enthusiastic about our invitation for you to preside over this jury, and we thank you for it. Now that the festival has started and you have met your co-jurors, how are you feeling about this mission?
I woke up this morning just so excited to watch these movies. I was telling all my colleagues how excited I am. I was like, are we gonna watch? When are we gonna watch another movie? I'm feeling like a kid here, and these guys are kind of the perfect partners in crime here to go through this. We already talk so much about cinema and what it means, and for me it's perpetual student, so to study every movie and learn from it, and the things that make each individual, when they tell a story, what we'll call their blind spots, is part of the beauty of the way they see the world, and so it's part of their strength. So what I don't see when I make a movie, it's part of the strength, and so it's such a beautiful thing to talk about what's working and what's challenging in movies, and I can't wait to have these conversations every single day until we're done here. Very exciting. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Are there questions? Yes, please.
I remember as a child going to the movies in Montreal from a small town and these beautiful movie theaters, and some of these movie experiences stayed with me even today. So I would like the members of the jury to share their first great movie experience, what hooked them to cinema. We have suffered so much, all of us, in the last 2 years worldwide, and I think movies is really, these movie experiences, what, anyway for me, what kept me going. So could you please share this with us, please?
Do you want to start at one end?
Okay, yes. Do I have everything on that I should have on? Yeah, good. My love affair with moving images, not exactly movies, began when I was a child. I was fostered, and so I spent a lot of time on my own, and I was just put down in front of the TV. So that was the first time when I realized that moving images can take you somewhere else. But then when I went back to my biological family, my dad absolutely loved movies. He was a professional man, and it wasn't easy for people of color to go to the movies in Zimbabwe, which was Rhodesia. But then they opened a drive-in, and black people were allowed to go to the drive-in because we stayed in our cars and didn't mix with other people. And he took us to see To Sir with Love. And that was the moment for me. That's when I knew that movies can move people in ways that seem almost impossible, that movies can bring different things together that one never would have thought could come together and could just make the world a better place.
Shall I say something? Well, cinema, for me, has always been like a religion, you know, and as a cinephile, I always been a very religious man, and I enjoy, of course, watching films at my place, at home, but for a religious man, the church is the most important place to watch movies, and the church is the theater. That's what I can say about my relationship with movies and about the theater, about the church. I really love to go to the theater, and like you, I missed going to the movie theater for 3 years. I'm very happy to be here because we're back to the church together.
My family have been in the movie theater business forever. My great-great-grandparents opened some of the first movie theaters in Denmark. My great-grandmother was an entrepreneur back when the female entrepreneur just was not very usual. She had her own movie theater. And so when I grew up, I saw pictures of these palaces for movies. And in my little town, the movie also represented the ability to see a world that was simply not accessible to me in my small town. I think one of my first film experiences, which my very religious mother took me to, I think because she erroneously thought it would stop me from ever trying to do anything illicit. It was a Christiane Evangelium. And it did in fact shock the bejesus out of me, but it also was so exciting as an experience because it felt so visceral as an experience that I realized, oh my God, movies can be many things. It's not just Marilyn Monroe on Sundays. It's because in Sundays in Denmark you could see a movie on TV. including Marilyn Monroe. And so for me, Christiane F. was like that first meeting with a movie that was trying to say something very deep in a shocking way, and it did. And since then, I've been in love with movies that are trying to say deeper things in a shocking way.
I was lucky enough to grow up at a time when kind of Lucas and Spielberg were making that movies that were aimed right at me at my age, at 11, 12, that kind of thing. So my friend said, let's go to this movie. And I did not want to go to this movie. I thought it was about science because he said some word about archaeology. And so I was thinking, I don't want to see a movie about science. But he forced me to go. We waited out line. The line was enormous to get into this old big movie theater. We were one of the last ones to get in. We couldn't sit together, and I'm a super shy kid. And this was about as scary as you can get. So I'm sitting in this 1,200 seat theater, old theater with all the statues and all that stuff. And there was a couple that was sitting next to me, and they could see I was very scared and, like tight like this. And they went and they got me popcorn and drinks. And this was an innocent time back then when you would just take it and have it. I'm sitting there with the popcorn. And then the logo comes up and the mountain comes up for Paramount, and it turns into Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was, I speak of religion as well when I think about cinema. And I was indoctrinated that day and just taken away. I felt I was seeing something that was so inspired and so fun, and the entire theater was locked as one entity, all 1,200 of us. And when we finished, my friend was outside and he was talking and I wasn't listening, and I was just transported. And sometimes they talk about professional athletes that they have a chance encounter with somebody. They meet a champion or something like that in a hallway or something, and then they go on to become a professional boxer or a basketball player. And that kind of thing felt like that. I was, at that moment, I said, I need to recreate this feeling in my life. How do I do that? How do I make stories? I mean, it's always been church to me as well.
Hello, let me speak in Japanese. この子供時代っていうと、僕は宗教的なことはですね、何も語れなくて、これは、もう本当に面白い映画を発見した体験っていうこと、これはもうバックトゥーザフューチャーパート2です。バックトゥーザフューチャーパート2を見て、映画っていうのはこんなに面白いものなんだ。それまで映画見てましたけれども、こんなにも面白いというものがその世の中に存在するんだっていうことは、その時初めて知ったような気がします。その時から映画館に通うようになって、自分自身はそんなになんですかね、外交的な人間ではなかった、どっちかというと内向的な人間だったんで、そういう劇場っていう空間の中でその現実を少し離れられるっていうことが自分にとってどれだけ救いになっていたかっていうのは計り知れないものがあると思います。その時の経験があるので、今自分が作っているものはバックトゥザフューチャーパート2と随分違いますけれども、ただ映画っていうのは面白いものなんだと、そしてとてもエキサイティングなもので、人の人生を変えられる力があるものなんだっていうことだけは忘れずに作っていきたいと思っています。
life, and this message I will never forget.
I grew up in a really small village, and there was no option to go to the cinema, so I first was watching TV a lot with my grandfather. It was only my grandfather, my mother, and my brother and me, and I was often alone, so I watched a lot with him. And then I remember one situation in which my mom, I don't know why, took me to a movie theater. And I watched a Hitchcock film, Das Fenster zum Hof. And I will never forget, as a child, I was maybe 9 or 10, how it felt to watch a film on a big screen. And all those feelings I had were more intensive and stronger and deeper. And I really loved the experience. But after that time, I needed to go back to the TV, to watch TV with my grandfather. But I think it's super important, especially in those times we are in right now, that we support cinema. And I think we are all sitting here because we love cinema so much. And I like to go to the cinema so much now. And that's it.
Yeah, I was raised by a single mother who was super busy, and we never went to the cinema. I was actually watching TV for a long time as well, for many years. And I remember there was one Sunday she took me to see Saturday Night Fever, and it was just incredible, just the joy of seeing people celebrating life and dancing on the screen and being transported to a completely different country that I had never really understood and thought about was kind of unforgettable. Then back to watching TV and then back to the cinema very rarely, and I never thought I would actually be doing and making films. And I think in every film I make, there's at least one dance scene, which I think it's always going back to that joy of seeing John Travolta in that dance floor at that time. So I think it's really learning that cinema is really a celebration of life and of incredible characters. So I feel very, very grateful that I can still be making it, really.
Hello, my question is to Mr. Hamaguchi. I just want to ask to you to share us your feelings. How is the same time to sitting here, make some decisions for other directors like Han Judge. At the same time, you will be the nominated in American Academy Oscar, yes. And the same time, you have some different chairs. You know, you are waiting something, and now you have some hand to make decision. How is your feeling at this time? Thank you.
はい。まずこの場にいられることをとても光栄に思っています。で、この M. ナイト・シャマラン監督のチームに入れたこと、審査員のチームに入れたということをとても光栄に思っています。シャマラン監督のやっていることっていうのは、僕にとってはそのブロックバスター的な映画作りと、インディペンデントな映画作りのちょうど中間地点に、あるものだというふうに、完璧な、混合ミクスチャーだというふうに思っています。なのでその方が審査委員長になるっていうことが、このベルリン国際映画祭のメッセージなんだとも思っています。ハリウッドの映画があったり、そのアートハウスの映画があったり、それは分かれたものに感じられるかもしれないけれど、それは区別しないんだっていう宣言で、この場が構成されているだと思います。なので自分もそういう態度であらゆる映画が同じような目線で見ることができるということを心に置いてその審査に臨みたいと思います。そのチームでそのディスカッションしていきたいというふうに思っております。とても楽しみにしています。
Hi, Christian Pogadets from Austria. I have a question for Mr. Shyamalan. It's nice to see someone who's been making horror movies for most of his career as the head of the Berlinale jury. And in the last few years, there's been quite a few developments within this genre with something that some might refer to as elevated horror gaining a lot of traction. Where do you see the future of horror cinema or genre filmmaking in general headed? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. You know, I have kind of theories about genre. You know, a lot of people refer to my films that way, I think, and then the reason that you do that is because that's the most high-octane genre of the mix of genres that I do in the movie. When we can go on and on about this, and we can talk about this later, you guys. But there's a kind of as you're mixing genres, you can always, and the movement of telling a story, you can move up in high-octane from like drama to mystery, to thriller, to supernatural thriller, to horror, and you kind of move up in that cast. You can never go backwards when you tell that story. And then what ends up happening is whatever the final, the highest form of the genre that you touch, whether even it's for 10 minutes, it's perceived as the entire movie is perceived that way. So for me personally, you can see I think of it more as a mix, and most of my movies are dramas at the end of the day, kind of having this clothing on it. And so they have this perception of elevated of the last genre that it's in. I find that juxtaposition of those languages very, very fruitful. You know, I was moved. When I went to the Academy Awards, you'll meet some amazing people. I met Robert Wise when I was there, and his daughter came up and said, "Oh, my father wants to meet you." And I went over and I couldn't believe who I was meeting. And he was one, you know, The Haunting and that he did. You know, that's so inspiring to me. I think, you know, when we feel a little bit disconcerted and the way we feel when we feel fear, it opens us up emotionally to things, and I can put on you experiences that stay with you, that are more indelible, that stay with you for a long time. The goal is to be the most resonant story. That's for me, the goal. So, and this genre, touching that genre helps me do that with you guys. So I'm very happy that the more it gets seen as a tool and not necessarily as an exploitation thing.
Hello, it's Kuriko from eiga.com. I have two questions to Mr. Ryusuke Hamaguchi. First of all, I will repeat later the question in English, in Japanese.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm listening.
Okay. First of all, congratulations on for nominations of Academy Award. Your film Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy was in the competition of Berlinale last year and was awarded the jury Grand Prix. So, what kind of festival to you? What does the Berlinale mean to you? And the second question is, so this year you are jury. So, when you decide the award with your colleagues, what will be your criteria like? Thank you.
そのベルリン国際映画祭、このアーティスティックディレクターのカルロ・シャトリアンのチームから自分がその審査員の依頼を受けられたということをとても光栄に思っています。そのカルロ・シャトリアンはその前のロカルの国際映画祭の時に自分のハッピーアワーという映画をコンペティションで選んでくれて、そのことも自分のキャリアっていうものを大きく道を開いてくれたっていう印象があります。なので、それはもちろん公正な選定のもとに選ばれているんですけども、私は恩を彼が自分の映画を見つけてくれたこと、そしてそれをこのベルリンでもその偶然に想像という映画で繰り返してくれたことを恩義を感じています。このベルリン国際映画祭に参加した去年の印象としては、本当にとてもよく考えられているというか、このコロナ禍の状況で一体どうやって映画祭を運営したらいいのか、その映画祭の意義っていうのは、国際映画祭の意義というものは一体何なのかということを、徹底的に考えてその運営されている映画祭だというふうに感じています。一方で、そこにある種の温かさがあるというのが、この映画のとても大きな特徴だというふうに感じています。人間的な温かみっていうものをずっと感じながら参考することができるという軽な映画祭なのではないだろうかと思っているし、それはチームの人たちの心遣いのおかげだというふうに思っています。で、その審査の基準っていうのはわからないっていうのが正直なところです。見るうちに心に残ったものっていうのを皆さんと一緒に言葉にしていきながら、だんだんこれが自分の審査基準だったのかっていうことを皆さんと話しながら分かっていくんじゃないだろうかということを私は思っています。
Hello and congratulations to us all for being back to church. My question is to all the jury members. In the latest years, there is a tendency which Mr. Hamaguchi has already mentioned, that this rift between the mainstream cinema and the festival cinema is getting smaller until to non-existent. And now we see, for example, Mr. Hamaguchi's movies in Oscar nomination, Jane Campion's movies in Oscars, and they're also winning festival awards. So my question is, what do you think, would this tendency go further? Would this difference be non-existent in some years? And is it good for the festival cinema and for the mainstream cinema? Or there should be some distinction? Thank you.
You guys do you want to start at that end?
Sure. I think it's very liberating, the fact that certain films that were not celebrated before by the mainstream can actually be celebrated now. So I think it's a really positive thing. But I think also festivals are really interesting as a place of discovery of new talent and of new ways of storytelling. So I think it's a really interesting moment in one way, but also I think that festivals are not always about sort of bridging the mainstream and the non-mainstream cinema, but also a place of discovery. So I think it's also important to remember that before we get there, there's a lot of path we need to get to, and I think festivals should keep. We've been seeing incredible films here, and some of them I watch and I think, is anybody going to see them? How are they going to? And I think they're really original, and the role of festivals is exactly to shed light also in things that probably won't cross to the mainstream, but I think, it can help those filmmakers to keep working and developing their own calligraphy, I would say.
Yeah, I think too it is both. There are for sure some films which are very unique, which we're gonna see here, and it's really nice to have the responsibility to help those films to get further. I wouldn't say it is like you say. It is. There are some films, that's true, but we also have that big blockbusters now, which are really far away from the cinema we watch here in festivals. So it is a bit of both.
自分の考えを述べると、その主要な映画とそのいわゆる芸術的な映画っていうものは、実際は分かれていないということです。それは歴史的に見ればむしろ分かれていなかったということが正しいということを言えば思っています。で、ここでの役割っていうのは分かれてないんだっていうそのことを宣言するっていうことなのではないだろうか。仮にアートハウスの映画に見えたとしても、それが十分にある種の商業性とか多くの観客に見られるべきものを含んでいるっていうことを、おそらく我々は宣言することになるんじゃないかという。
I'm sure that we will find ourselves in the situation to declare that there's no difference or the distance between these two categories.
This is a subject I think about a lot. The thing you're talking about, because as Mr. Hamaguchi said, I kind of live in the center there, with loves on both sides. I try to think of it this way, that when you're making a commercial movie, what we'll just call as a commercial movie, the storytellers are entirely acknowledging the audience. They're entirely, making it solely for the audience. The taxi driver, the doorman who paid and came in, and they're saying, we're gonna make you laugh, and we're gonna make you gasp, and we're completely thinking about you. And that's wonderful to see the audience. When they leave the theater, though, they're not necessarily changed. They are the same person that they were when they walked in. They were seen, and that's beautiful to be seen. And then on the other side, what we'll call independent cinema is almost the worldview of a very specific person. And that's so specific that they're not actually seeing us. They're not saying, hey, we see you and we're going to make sure that you are being seen and entertained. I want to tell you about my point of view of this story. And what's so beautiful about that is you're seeing a new perspective on the world. And so when you walk out of the cinema, when you see that, you've changed. And you're not the same person, but you weren't necessarily seen. And so sometimes it's a little harder to watch. It takes a little bit more effort. You're keeping up and watching their perspective of pace and emotion and value systems, and you change because of that. My hope has always been that you guys can see me a little bit, and I see you guys. So that's been my dream for that, and I do think it's a continuum. They're both beautiful ways to tell stories, so it's where you choose to be on that continuum.
I think that blockbusters and mainstream filmmaking is an incredibly important measure with which to get people to also be interested in more singular voices and more difficult to access movies. For actors, for example, I think it's great for us to participate in very big blockbuster movies with the hope that when you are also doing films that are less accessible and perhaps just less pleasure-seeking as an experience for the audience, you're hoping that the audience will go with you and watch the more difficult to approach storylines. And I think that film festivals are essential to mixing precisely this this thing where you get the attention grabbing and no issue budgets with the really hard to do difficult stories. I think Shyamalan is right in saying that films do have the potential of changing your life, and sometimes it's the more difficult to access films that do so. And so film festivals, in my opinion, are incredibly important to give voice and space to films that otherwise might not get distribution.
I think the best answer to your question is Night M. Shyamalan, because his movies are very entertaining. They are targeted for the large audience. And in the meantime, they are almost experimental movies. They are meaningful and they have personality. So that's what we expect as an audience, as a cinephile, from a film, to be very entertaining and to make you think.
Yes, I am very invested in your question because for me it's a question about diversity in broad terms, and of course I want to see even more diversity in the film industry. So I have been watching Sidney Poitier's films since he passed away. I tried to go chronologically, starting from the 50s. And what I saw that was very interesting to me was that a lot of his early films were big studio films, but they were issue-based. So the question for me then becomes, when did this separation occur? I mean, I think it was 57, he did an adaptation of a novel, Something of Value, in Kenya, about the Mau Mau rebellion. And it was beautiful. I found it really beautiful. So for me, the question then becomes, when did this separation occur? When did it become not quite right commercially in cinema not to engage with issues? And I think that perhaps if one looks at the political history of the countries that have been at the forefront of moving cinema, one might be able to find reasons for that. And so I think the fact that we now see the two coming together, not the blockbuster obviously, but commercial and issue-based converging now, I do think that this is due to the very dedicated and targeted work of festivals like the Berlinale and some of the other big festivals, Sundance for example, Toronto, because I think that the people who lead those festivals are aware of the necessity to exploit the transformational power of film and to make sure that that can reach a larger audience. So I really do think that the convergence now is due to the hard work of people who understand the power of cinema and who have the platforms for it.
Thank you so much to the jury for your thoughtful answers, and thank you for your questions. Have a good day and have a good festival.